This movie tells a story about Ember and Wade in a city where fire, water, land, and air residents live together. It's essentially a story about immigration and integration with a love story at its heart. Unfortunately, this movie is really lackluster. In the past, you always expected Pixar movies to be able to give you the combination of technical wizardry and phenomenal storylines, but this movie is simply underwhelming. The wow factor of Pixar movies in the past has been lost at this point, and what we're left with feels like just another mediocre Pixar movie. The originality is mostly absent here, as much about the movie seems familiar. It's so formulaic and predictable as the story leans into the stereotypes of the genre rather than away from them. The romance between Ember and Wade goes exactly where you think it will. The movie is one giant metaphor for immigration and exclusion, but this is a familiar story that the movie is handling in a clumsy and ham-fisted way. The whole scenario seems forced, making a mess of its world building in service of a really conventional story. The metaphor here is clear, but it's a little tricky to follow quite how the city is supposed to correspond to the real world, since there are practical reasons these different characters cannot mix. The overcomplicated premise creates all sorts of confusing new rules, especially for kids to learn, the rules which don't really apply outside the film. The movie is really muddled in its depiction of immigrant communities as well. It's surprisingly non-committal in imagining the chemistry of inner-city elements interacting. Narratives about identity are important, but this movie lacks the delicate nuance needed to tell these stories. This movie is so elaborate and calls for so much exposition that the movie is still trying to shoehorn essential backstory into the film's final third. It doesn't help that the pace is rapid as well. The plot should be simpler, not faster. There's nothing really problematic with the visuals, but even the film's promising aspect of visuals feels wasteful because of the unimaginative storytelling. Overall, this movie is such a disappointment. We do not recommend to watch this in theaters. Just wait on your streaming service.